to the SJ Child Show. The SJ Child Show brings value to families through education, resources, and lots of laughs. You can find us on our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at the SJ Child Show. You can also find us on your favorite podcast platforms. Today, our special guest is Warren Miles Pickup. Warren hosts a podcast called The Flawed Dad's Guide to Parenting. Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show. And thank you for joining the SJ Child Show. I'm your host, SJ Childs, and today I have a very exciting guest, Warren Miles Pickup. He is here from Canada. Hello, Warren.
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. I'm so honored and pleased to have you here today, all the way to Utah. Thanks for traveling.
It's nice to be able to travel technologically now instead of physically.
Isn't it, though? I agree with that. So we can just visit wherever we want these days. I love it. So I really am excited to talk to you today about your podcast, about your parenting kind of thoughts that you have about how it's evolving through your work, and what you're going through yourself as well.
Sure.
So please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So as Sarah mentioned, my name's Warren Miles Pickup. I have a podcast called The Flawed Dad's Guide to Parenting. I'm also a financial advisor and public speaker, and I do a lot of different things. I keep myself busy. I'm a father to 3 daughters that are 10, 8, and 6. I have an amazing wife who is a mechanical engineer, works on naval systems, but also spent time as a BA working with children with autism. She's an early childhood educator, just an amazing, amazing person who supports me through all of this. So that's basically who I am. I spend my time with my kids or working or keeping myself busy with a number of different projects because I have a brain that just doesn't stop.
It sounds like we're a lot alike in that factor, doesn't it? Well, that's fantastic. I'm so excited. I got to listen to your podcast, and you guys just have such a great flow and bounce off each other so well and make such good conversation.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And the information is so, just nice to hear. And it's always good to hear just kind of people's life stories and their experiences, because real life is happening. It's really happening, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And that was kind of the idea, was to make it a bit more approachable in terms of the parenting advice that's out there, because a lot of it feels a little ivory tower-ish, that you can't really touch it and that perfection is the only way to go. And we didn't want parents to feel that way. We wanted them to have a bit of a safe space that they could go, okay, I get yelling at my kids is wrong, but it still happens.
Yeah.
Right. The idea of stopping yourself before you yell and knowing to take a deep breath before you get into that situation. It's not possible all the time. And so being able to listen to a podcast with a couple of guys who know they're flawed, who are definitely imperfect, but are trying to get better every day, I think was something we really wanted to create. It came out of some big problems that were going on in my household, where one of my daughters actually got to the point of being suicidal at 8 years old. And so I knew I needed to make some big changes to the way that we parented in our house. And my co-host Graham was somebody that I looked up to a lot in terms of his parenting style, the way that he did things, the amount of time that he spent educating himself about it. And so we spent a lot of time chatting over beers and laughing and commiserating. And we decided, why don't we just record this, and other dads can and moms. We actually have more female listeners than we do male listeners. And they can commiserate with us. And it's gone fantastic.
Oh, bravo to you. I
Thank you.
absolutely think that's just such an incredible and amazing, for you to take the commitment to see that you needed to make some changes in your
Mhm.
family life. I mean, I'm right there with you. And, kind of back to what you said about taking a deep breath before you're going to yell. Before having a child with autism, was definitely
Mhm.
the parent that didn't mind yelling at my older child. Quite comfortable with it, in fact. And yeah,
It becomes
oh,
second
it
nature.
does. And it took some training. And
Yeah.
you know what I did? I literally would yell out, I want to scream right now. And that was my key. That was
Mhm.
my like, okay, I just screamed. I wanted to. I did it.
Mhm.
That's it. Don't yell at her. That I would just yell, I want to scream right now. And that's
That's a
it.
great way to do it. I've never heard of that or thought of that. Like you create your own key to recognize when
Yeah.
it's getting out of hand.
Yeah. And so I kind of, it definitely took some time, but it's been years now. And I look back and I'm like, I don't even remember screaming. Like, I don't even remember
Mhm.
what it was like to do that. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And yeah, now my two younger children have and of course, I'm not going to say that in the middle of the night, I'm not like displeased about the amount of noise happening, but as it's not a regular go to everyday
Yeah.
thing that now is second nature kind of thing. So,
Yeah. That's an amazing change and one that is really challenging for a lot of parents. The yelling thing is probably what comes up on our podcast the most. I mean, we've
yeah,
covered a whole bunch of other topics like different
yeah,
parenting styles, which has been a big challenge in my household. And we've interviewed some really interesting people. We talked about the Danish style of parenting, like
mm,
reframing and repositioning, that sort of stuff.
wow. I've never
If
heard of that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept. The whole Danish style of parenting. We talk about the sort of 7 differences between the way we parent in North America and the way they
Mm.
parent in Denmark, and it's really neat to read about. I was going to say, if I didn't have any listeners on the podcast, just committing an hour every week to discussing it has made me a better parent, a more calm parent, a more rational parent, one that's able to step back and deal with the challenges my daughters are going through without having that kind of primordial brain take over first.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for people that are listening or watching, something to really, really think about and consider is, find support groups that
Mhm.
have the same challenges, find, definitely somebody who is understanding, talking to the person that is like talking to a brick wall. That's not going to bring you relief or any of that. So definitely find your tribe, find your niche
Yeah.
to go into something like that, because I see that. I run an autism advocacy group, and I find the same thing. People, they just want to be heard and listened to and feel a connection with like minded individuals. They're
Yeah.
going through the same thing. And like you said, the growth and change that it's had for me as a person to just wake up every morning, put an inspirational quote on a page, and people are left and right. You're changing my life. You're
Yeah.
changing our family. And I'm like, okay, flatten my angel wings out a little bit. But yeah, I not even intentional. It was just fun. It was just made for fun. And it wasn't even like, oh, I'm gonna change everyone's life. Yes, I want to change the world. I'm not gonna deny that, but
Yes.
I'm doing it, right? And so
Yeah.
are you.
Yeah, well, certainly trying to. I mean, when I first started talking about my 8-year-old daughter's, desire to commit suicide, the number of people I had reach out to me saying, thank you so much for sharing this, Warren. We were going through the same thing, but we had no idea. We thought we were alone.
Yeah.
And, I started hosting some stuff on Clubhouse as well,
Mhm.
and discussing it and discussing what we did for our daughter in order to get her to pull back from the edge, and the therapy and changing her vocabulary around the topic, those
Mm.
sorts of things, and how effective that has been. There was a huge reaction from the community to just really embrace that. And
Yeah.
if I can share some of those skills with other people, then
Yeah. Can we talk about that a little
sure.
bit? What did that look like for you? How did you know that this was, I mean, did she come to you and tell you,
Yeah.
or did you just find out? And where did you go with this information?
Probably the worst couple days of my life, right? Easily is seeing your daughter or a child in that much pain where they do not want to live anymore.
Mm.
And so she approached my wife in the kitchen, and my wife was cutting vegetables, something like that. And she came up and said, I just want to take that knife and stick it into myself. I don't want to live anymore. And because it was so specific, we knew that it was a real threat. And the vocabulary for her very quickly became, I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to be here. I see no hope for the future for me being happy again. And it was really painful.
Yeah.
And so we immediately reached out to a number of people. Being in Canada, we're very fortunate to have a great healthcare system that's funded by taxpayer dollars. And so we had no concerns about how this would affect us monetarily or anything. We just immediately reached out and had so many resources brought to us, whether
Wonderful.
it was child suicide lines and support groups and clinical psychologists and therapists and everything. And so we have had weekly therapy sessions for her. We've had weekly therapy sessions for my wife and I. We've had a lot of different things that we have done in order to try to give her the skills to deal with it, but also to give us the skills to help her change how she feels about things. Like, you're not going to become happy overnight, but being able to reframe and change the vocabulary that she uses so she doesn't traumatize other kids and then make herself a social outcast. Because as much as, suicidal thoughts are something that a lot of people experience now because mental health is a major issue, there's still a massive stigma to it. And particularly at her age.
And
so
has this all happened during the pandemic?
In the last 4 months.
Wow.
So this started right at the beginning of November. We lost our dog who passed away. And then that just sent her into a spiral. And she's a massive empath. She feels everybody else's pain and suffering. And it just sent her into a spiral. The fact that she'd been, 7 months without being able to see anybody, no play dates, no anything. And it's really traumatic. We have to be checking in on our kids during this time. This is really hard for them. We think it's hard for us. I think it's way harder for our kids.
It's so true. It's so true that we really need to focus on and check in with our kids, no matter what age they are. We also have a 21-year-old. We still need to check in on her and make sure she's doing okay, because, we also spent 12 years going through therapy for these exact types of things. And, unfortunately, I guess I feel maybe didn't have as wonderful resources available to us. So it just went unsolved, just year after year after year, just doing the same thing over and over again. And I don't even realize it till we're having this conversation. Like, I wish that somebody would have seen something differently. There would have been some other perspective that would have engaged us to find some real answers.
I think the understanding of mental health issues, and particularly depression and suicide, has come so far in the last decade. The understanding of it being its own national sort of pandemic, or international pandemic as it may be, is really come to the forefront. And so there is so much more support for individuals that are going through those sorts of situations than there was a decade ago.
Yeah. How is she doing now? Is she doing better?
Yeah, she's doing much better. We did wind up having to change school. So a lot of it came out of, we found out that she was being bullied.
Yes.
And so she was being excluded and told to kill herself and
Oh,
that sort of thing.
heavens.
And so
I'm
we
so
wound
sorry.
up moving her schools. And the new school has been great. She's had some challenges at the new school. She's a very, I don't know how to put this. She's very aggressive, like in terms of her personality.
Mhm.
Like she's very outgoing.
Yeah.
And so we had some issues. She's going to a Catholic school now. And she was very assertive in her feeling about boys.
Okay.
And to the point where, you know, boys were professing their love for her and that sort of thing, and passing her notes saying how much they looked forward to kissing her and that sort of thing. This is in grade 3.
Oh boy.
And the school, you know, being a religious school, was not so happy with these sorts of things. And so we really had to kind of deal with some of those things as well. But in the end, you know, I guess I'm a bit of a female empowerment advocate. I think it's her body.
3
she
daughters.
Can control it. She can do, you know, as she feels with it. You know, that's her right. It's not for anybody else to control her. So
yeah,
that may not be a popular view with everybody,
Hey,
but
I'm right
new
there
age
with you.
dad.
Yeah,
right?
100%. Like along the same lines, joke that we're like gypsies that own a home, because we live in no time socially. Like we don't hold ourselves with like time frames here.
Mhm.
We are all home. Nobody's going to school right now. Like we're all home. You know, the kids are homeschooled.
Yeah.
My husband's home. I'm home. We're all being here together. It doesn't matter what time people go to bed, eat their dinner. Like we have just allowed complete flexibility in our home, and it's so peaceful. You know, it's like there's no tension, there's no aggression, and biologically, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, agreed.
Everybody's getting what they need on whatever basis their own body feels time and ready. So I love it.
And think about the sense of independence that you're developing in those kids, right?
So true, right?
A sense of self-responsibility and taking ownership over their own, you know, important aspects. And
I love that. I didn't even think about it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. I recognize that for many parents that situation does not work, because there are a lot of outside actors that place constraints on our timelines, that sort of thing. But you know, if you have the opportunity, I mean, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, explore those things if you can, because I feel like we have just grown as a family. You know, we have recognized now, having our children home and having our daughter actually being homeschooled. She was previously in a charter school. And I had reached out to the teachers and said, you know, could you test her for dyslexia? I'm seeing some things here and there. I've written a book about dyslexia. Give me a little credit.
Yeah.
So right.
I happen to be a subject matter expert on this.
But unfortunately, you know, they said, oh, she's so smart. She's so sweet and bright and friendly. She's going to catch up. Everything will be fine. Well, that's not the case. And that's not the truth about things. And that's not how, you know, children that come up with these kind of challenges should be pushed aside. Because once we did get her home and I was literally seeing her write numbers and letters in front of me backwards, I reached out to the online school that we've belonged to for the last 5 years with our son.
Yeah.
And I have a fabulous relationship with them. And I just said, I know this is the case. Please get her help. Let's figure this out right away. Within a week, they had 2 tutors a week. Now she's almost up to the level she should be at. And it's incredible.
Yeah.
The amount of confidence that it's built, the understanding that for her whole life, this might be a challenge, but here are some tricks that we can, you know, come up against. And also being home, being virtual, it hasn't put as much pressure on you need to write this sentence down with the class, you know, in a certain amount of time. And so it's just incredible.
Our with my oldest and her dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, and ADHD, we actually moved her to a school that specializes in students like that. So I guess in the States, we called a charter school.
Yeah.
In Vancouver, it's a school for children with learning disabilities. And the difference that it made, because she's grade 5 now. At the start of this year, she started in September. She was probably halfway through grade 1 with regards to her reading and writing skills. She is now in 5-6 months, however long it's been, she's back up to a grade 5 level.
Yeah.
And because of the special support and those sorts of things. I was actually, my middle daughter, I was supposed to be taking her for psych ed this morning, drove 30 kilometers. So what's that, like 18 miles to get to this clinic to have her do her psych ed assessment this morning. 20 minutes before the meeting, they call me and they say, "Oh yeah, the therapist is sick, so you've got to turn around and go home." So we're in the process of discovering that, because my wife didn't know that she was dyslexic until 4th year of engineering in university.
Oh wow!
So she made it all the way through high school, engineering degree, all of that. Didn't know until right before final exams that she was dyslexic. And managed to figure out all those coping mechanisms. So very, very incredibly intelligent person.
Sounds like
right?
it.
But if she had been given the appropriate support throughout all of that, imagine how much more she could have done.
Yes.
And so this idea that they can just catch up like this, like the school was saying for your daughter, that's not what it's about. It's about, can we give them more tools to be able to surpass averages? Can we get them beyond mediocrity by giving them the tools that they need?
Yeah, so definitely.
It's awesome that you're fighting for your daughter.
Thank you.
And getting those tools.
Yeah. Well, and the reason our son is home is for that same exact purpose, because when he reached first grade, he was reading at 1, writing at 2.
Yeah.
At 3, we realized he had a photographic memory, and I just started indulging myself in teaching him everything I could possibly find. I shouldn't say teaching him, providing him the information to absorb on his own. And
it was a resource management role.
Exactly. I love that. And so, here he is, 5 years old, doing algebra. And the school just said to me, we can't provide him the education level that he needs. And also, the kind of social setting that he needs for autism. And I just so disappointed, and just kind of, thought to myself, why do this child a disservice when he won't be the only one in existence to come up with these wonderful challenges as you will have? And why not open the door, create a program that's available so that he's the pioneer of this? You guys are the pioneers of these things. But unfortunately, that's
the fact that the public education system, and it's I think it's all over the world, hasn't figured out that they can now scale education systems through technology for every specific situation, just blows my mind. Right. I would have thought that this year would have been a huge kind of red flag, alarm bells going off saying we need to change the way we're doing things to be more inclusive, to provide specified resources, to be able to develop these kids who each learn and are able to utilize resources in different ways. I think there's a massive shakeup coming to the education. I'm a bit of a futurist.
I love it. Yeah, we're right there together.
I think there's huge changes coming, and I'm looking forward to it.
And, you said something earlier that it kind of jogged something for me as well, is that I would like to see change in the future. And that is our language that we use for children. I would love to see the term disorder changed to reorder. Let's talk about the reordered thinking process that these children are going through. They are not disserviced. It's not a diss. They are more, challenging, because it's something we don't know about, because we aren't knowledgeable to know about it yet. They are. How exciting is that? It's evolutionary. I think that disability, we need to try to change these stigmas and the language we give to our children, so that they feel so much more empowered and not beaten down by society's ideas of what the label should be, what its meaning should be, I guess. So
Yeah, I agree. I think the word disorder, means that they're going to be a drag on whether it's economic or resource wise or
Right?
whatever. Whereas they have so much to offer if we are able to create the systems to put them in place.
Yeah.
And with technology today, every aspect of that is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And they will be not just full contributing members to society, but exceptional members of society
Yeah,
that
100%.
that teach us, whether it be empathy or in terms of your son, who will likely be incredibly gifted
Yes,
and able to
100%.
offer huge intellectual insights into all kinds of areas.
Right. I'm looking really forward to that. And there was a time when he was nonverbal, and that was something I couldn't see as a future, is having those kinds of deep conversations about what's happening. Can you explain to me how you're feeling about the situation, or what kind of things do you desire for the future? Those are things that we're still working on, kind of evolving and growing, because those are still things that we haven't been able to really delve into with him. We just barely scratched the surface, and are now, through years of therapy and our dedication to him and everything, we're starting to see this just budding, amazing, beautiful personality that's coming out, and is being so much more willing to let us in to show us what his world is consisting of, which is music composition theory. Right now he's 11, and he's taught himself piano, so he's oftentimes just down doing piano, but he also just loves little boy things. He loves Nintendo. He loves creating the little me's for the Nintendo universe. And it's interesting through these games, and kind of through this new game that he's found. It's kind of like a lifestyle game, and so it's teaching him all of these types of things that I don't think we could have as parents. Like, this character wants to give this other character a gift. What kind of gift do you think I should give them? And it's like, wow, we wouldn't have had this conversation in any kind of naturalistic environment. And it is just incredible how much we're hearing from him, like about how much he wants to be in a relationship in the future. That's not something we'd ever expected for him. And it's wonderful.
It's amazing, because those are typically areas that are very challenging for people with that are on the spectrum, understanding social cues and being able to do the right thing at the right time in those types of situations. Like that's fantastic.
It's neat. It's really neat. And I'm, maybe I should write them a letter and say, thank you, Nintendo Tamagotchi Life, because this is like, he's gaining life skills through this gameplay, this role play game. It's really incredible. And it's just kind of a new thing. So I'm excited to see kind of where that takes him, because 11, we're right on that verge of puberty and all the exciting
all
stuff
the things that come with that. Yeah.
And I've never had a son, so this is going to be a new ride for me.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be so interesting. Tell us more about like your podcast, where we can find it.
Sure. So it's called The Flawed Dad's Guide to Parenting. It's on all the different podcast sources, so Spotify, Apple, Overcast, all of those. So my co-host Graham and I host it. It's available every week on Tuesdays. We talk about all kinds of different topics. We do some interviews. Our most recent one coming up is an interview with a gentleman by the name of David Metzger, who is a pediatric oncology nurse. And so he deals with children in the cancer ward, and he's in the process of writing a book, and we talk about all kinds of things. So there are some episodes that are a bit more serious, but most of the episodes are the two of us laughing as we talk about all of the challenges we face while we're parenting. Because if you can't laugh about it, it becomes really, really challenging.
Isn't that the truth? No, I agree with that. And we were doing, tell me a funny story segment. And then I was always finding hard to transition into how do I tell a funny story about something after we've come off such a serious conversation?
Yes.
Where do you change this up? So no, it's nice just having it organic and be very natural. But like you said, you have to laugh. You have to sit back and laugh and be able to laugh at yourself, be flexible.
Well, and it took me a while to come to terms with the fact that I am a severely flawed parent, right? Like understanding all of the challenges that I have in my own personality. I would think I'm a fairly introspective person, but recognizing how that was impacting my kids and taking a step back to try and focus on self-improvement from a parenting perspective. And it led me to the point of going and doing things like clinical psychoneurophysiology, which is a form of brain training where they measure out the different brain waves that you have and determine how they interact with each other and where you may have blockages. And I would say that I'm a pretty intense person naturally with a naturally chaotic brain, a lot of different thoughts going on at any given time. And so what they do is they hook up all these diodes and they measure all the brain waves, and then they do auditory training where there's a reward sound for your brain when they see certain levels of different brain waves achieve different areas, like kind of the optimal area. And so you go in every week and you sit down in the dark with these diodes hooked up to you and headphones on, and they play these different series of sounds in order to try to stimulate your brain to behave in a certain pattern.
Wow.
And so my big issue was that I was always operating as if I was in fight or flight mode. And you can imagine how that is for kids, right? 3 kids in particular, 3 spirited daughters who have a lot of conflict amongst themselves because they're big personalities.
Yeah. And
if you're always in fight or flight mode, you're always assuming that every problem requires a nuclear response. And so you come in and, okay, enough, everybody split up like to your own rooms, and constant division of the situation. And what this is helping me to do is recognize that not all situations require fight or flight and the nuclear option.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I love that. I really like learning about neuroscience. In fact, I took just kind of like a course online that was neuroscience for parents that explained, just like you said, the time frames in which children were going through certain neural development and the instincts that they would go through in those certain situations. And I think it really helped us understand where our children were at in their age groups to help better guide them and give them the support, like you said, and independence that they need to be confident, successful people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
well, I just think that it's great that you've dedicated so much time for your family, and I'm sure they are certainly so lucky to have you. And
they might argue, but
right?
I think no matter how great of a job we're doing, our flaws are always exposed.
Yeah.
And so no matter how much work you put into it, you have to accept that there are always areas for improvement.
Yeah.
And that's the idea of being a flawed dad, is that no matter how good of a parent I am, there will always be areas that I can improve. And so our families are the ones that see those flaws and expose them to us.
Yeah.
So, to us, it sounds like, okay, you're starting to do everything right. You're spending time on it, those sorts of things. To my family, it's like, well, you could be so much better. and that's fine. I'm good with that.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, and I think that there's something to really be said about teaching your children and learning yourself that your mistakes are what help you gain your learning experiences and learn to grow. And by not having them, by not making mistakes, by kind of running away from that, you're not able to grow, and you
Yeah.
need to be. If you're not changing every day, then you're not growing. And just, do something a little different to expand yourself every single day.
Exactly. I'm a huge advocate for the idea of failing fast. Right. Yeah. So, experience something. If it fails, that's fine. Learn from it, move on. And the more failures you have, the more opportunities you've had to learn to figure out what it is that's going to work.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're going to do something, figure out what's not going to work about it as quickly as possible.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah. That's
so great. I fail fast very regularly.
Oh, well, I probably do the same thing. I just probably beat myself up about it a little bit more than I should. And I think that's, something we have to give ourselves a little.
That's a hard one.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Breaking
we're our
bad
own
habits.
biggest critics,
So
right?
true.
Particularly if we're talking about this sort of stuff publicly.
Seriously.
You do really beat yourself up because you'll say something about how it maybe should be done. Right.
Yeah.
You're recognizing that this is the improper way to do it. And then you catch yourself doing it and you just, oh, damn.
Like,
why did I do that? I know
that.
I shouldn't be doing that.
Isn't that the truth? That is so true. I agree. It was such a pleasure to have you on today. I really am so glad that we got to connect. And
yeah, me too.
I hope that we can stay connected and
I would love to.
Just catch up and just really draw from one another's great experiences. I'm so happy that your daughter's doing better.
Thank you.
And I'll be sending all of my unconditional love out there for you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here today, Warren. We really loved having you. And everybody, please go and listen to the Flawed Dad's podcast. I don't know if I said that right.
Flawed Dad's Guide to Parenting.
Yep. There we go. And I'll have everything down in the description so nobody will miss where to find you. Thank you so much, Warren. We'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure.
Kind of guy that keeps you warm at night when you are cold. I'll grab some blankets from my bed, wrap them around your chest, and I'll pull you close. We'll flip some channels to find out there's nothing on right now to ease your mind. Sit back, relax, there is no rush, no need to speed things up. All we have is time to think about the future, forget about the past. Time to figure out a way to make this moment last. To make this moment last. To make this moment last. The kind of love that we've been dreaming of when we sleep at night. We'll get a little house to live in, have a couple kids, and we'll sleep tight. 'Cause baby, all we really need are just a couple things to stay alive, and everything else in between. Just trust my heart, you'll see. We're slowly coming. Time to think about the future, forget about the past. Time to figure out a way to make this moment last. To make this moment last. To make this moment last. Sunrises, sunsets, I won't let you forget that I need you. Spring comes and spring goes, forever you will know that I love you. Sunrises, sunsets, I won't let you forget that I need you. Spring comes and spring goes, forever you will know that I love you.